So the Cavs, were they actually split at number one, or is this just something that's said to make everybody feel good?
You know, I thought all along, Keith, that it was a bit of a smokescreen having Jabari Parker at 1, because there were a lot of teams in that middle part of the top 10 that were high on Parker, namely Utah at number 5 and Boston at number 6. So by putting it out there that they were going to take Parker at 1, they felt like they could get better offers to maybe trade down in the draft. But I thought overall, and I've had him in my mock drafts for the last 2 months, really, Wiggins, above Parker at that spot. Obviously, when Joel Embiid goes out, it becomes different. But I thought all along the franchise was pretty well committed to making Wiggins the top overall pick.
And yet Parker is still seen as the most NBA-ready guy going at number 2 to Milwaukee?
He is. He's just a scorer. And, teams feel like he can step in and give you between 10 and 15 points right away. He's going to go into that Milwaukee lineup, a lineup that desperately needs some kind of offensive punch there, and play 30 minutes per game and probably give you that 10 to 15 that I mentioned. Defensively, he's a liability. Who isn't at this point? It comes out of college. But Wiggins, he's going to take more polish. He's a better two-way player than Parker is, got better defensive instincts. But offensively, very much a work in progress. Doesn't attack as much as he probably should. But if you watch the games he played at Kansas, his on games are really, really on. So I think over the long term, he's going to turn out to be the better player.
It's him and 9 other guys who are kind of, don't you root it? The other 9 guys are in silhouette almost.
You remember why you like, oh my God, in high school we knew what this guy was.
You say, well, now who were the other guys out there? I remember they had I had a scorecard here somewhere. All right, which of these statements regarding the 3rd pick will be true 2 years from now? Give him 2 years. It's amazing Embiid fell to the 76ers, or it's amazing Embiid has still not played a game for the 76ers?
I'm going to go with the former.
Yeah.
I know that we sit back and look at make the Yao Ming comparison and the Bill Walton comparison, and yes, they are the same type of injury. But I've interviewed 3 to 4 doctors about this particular injury, and they all say, even for a player that size, if you catch it early, if you have surgery early, chances are he's going to come back at full strength. Joel Embiid is only 20 years old. He's got youth on his side. He's got relative health coming into this on his side. Philadelphia, as we saw last year with Nerlens Noel, they're not going to rush this guy back onto the court. There's a very good chance, in my opinion, that he doesn't see the court at all in his first year of basketball. So I think they're going to take their time with him, and when he does come back, I think he's going to be fine.
Now, you mentioned, as we sat down here, a huge Philadelphia contingent there at the draft tonight. And are they so confused that they're not yelling? Because from an outside perspective, drafting Embiid, going and getting the guy who was supposedly their guy from Louisiana Lafayette, Payton, and then trading him down for a guy who's going to play next year in Turkey.
Next 2 years, maybe.
Next 2 years, maybe. I mean, did they tank in order to tank the draft, in order to tank next year? And clearly it's a long-term plan, but what are they thinking, the 22nd century? Or
I got a couple of texts during draft night from a couple of executives that asked me, does Sam Hinkie, the GM in Philly, have a 10-year deal?
Yeah.
Because it just seems like he's willing to take the patient road with all of this. The Philadelphia people are ecstatic about Joel Embiid. They believe, as I do, that, given half a year to a year, he's going to turn out to be this transcendent talent that they can build the team around. They were okay with Payton when they heard the name. He is a point guard. They already have a point guard in place. A lot of head scratching, though, amongst people once the word started to get out that Dario Saric was going to come there. He's a guy that, as I mentioned, definitely playing next year in Turkey, probably playing 2 years. When I talked to him on Wednesday, he seemed committed to coming to the NBA, but what did we see with Fran Vasquez in 2005? Guys say they're going to go over and play with their team, they get comfortable, they make a lot of money, and maybe they don't come all the way over. Philadelphia, obviously playing the long game here. They look at these two guys as being maybe top 8, and in case of Embiid, top 1 type talents, and think, all right, we're probably going to stink again next year. We've got Noel coming back. We've got Carter Williams. In 2 years, we might have like an Oklahoma City type young nucleus that can be the envy of the NBA.
And in the interim, do they have the option not to field a team next year, just forfeit all games?
Well, they've got something like 13 first-round or second-round picks in this year's draft. It's basically the Sam Hinkie Invitational going on with the second-round picks. So they'll be able to field a roster with some of these guys. They drafted K.J. McDaniels, a kid with first-round talent out of Clemson. So they'll have some decent athletes on the roster, but it's going to be a long season down there.
Tell me about the Australian, by way of the American collegiate system, Dante Exum.
Yeah.
A strange placement where he wound up?
Not really. A little surprised that Orlando didn't scoop him up at number 4. But Orlando, they were looking at Elfrid Payton at 12, and they thought they'd be able to get their hands on him. If they didn't get him, they liked Tyler Ennis. They liked a couple of the guys, Shabazz Napier as well. But going 5, that's Utah's dream right now. I know it seems like now they have 2 point guards in the mix, but Exum fancies himself a point guard. A lot of teams that scout him think he's more of a 2 guard. And it's not like he's a small guy. He's a 6'6" guy who can facilitate the basketball. Paired with Trey Burke, who's more of a scoring point guard, I think this is a dynamic young backcourt out there.
All right, Marcus Smart to Boston, so Rondo to Philadelphia?
Well, they're going to – he's playing. I can't go down.
That's true.
Look –